Hi, everyone, and welcome inside Rack Scottsdale for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. Gabby Chernoff and Chris Cartman here, joined today by ASU Athletic Director Graham Rossini. Graham, thank you so much for taking the time joining us today. How are things going?
Thanks, Gabby. Good to be with you.
Not busy at all, are you, Graham?
Just a random Monday in the office. Nothing going on.
Yeah. Well, this is pretty exciting for you to be here. I think ASU fans, they always love to hear from the source, and you're like the source. So
awesome.
The ability to have this conversation at this time of year, football ongoing, hockey going, basketball starting up, there's so much going on. What's it feel like for you at like this time of year?
It's exciting. I mean, we're in the midst of football season. You know, the story is still to be written, but obviously a lot of excitement with how the season's going. There's controversial moments every now and then that we're dealing with. Water bottles is the one from today, but a lot of excitement.
In water bottles, right?
No comments on the officiating. That was a head scratcher for sure. But yeah, excited about where we are in the department right now. And you mentioned the fall and winter sports in full swing. We've got soccer with a really big match in Tucson Thursday, playing for Big 12 tournament seeding, finding out their tournament fate not that long from now. A huge volleyball game Wednesday night at home against TCU. Basketball is getting going next week. Hockey's in full swing, as you mentioned. Cross country, golf, tennis, everybody's going. So it's funny how you look up and it's almost Halloween time. Everybody that plays in the fall and winter is either underway or about to be underway. And then, you know, we'll look up and it'll be March and it'll be total chaos with, I think, 20 of 26 going at that point. So it's all a continuation. It's all exciting. We've got great momentum throughout the department. And so we're having a blast trying to get better every day.
Definitely a lot going on in the ASU athletic department. So again, we thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
We're going to hit on, of course, football's weekend against Houston, kind of the season as a whole, and then we'll hit on every sport. Men's and women's basketball, like you mentioned, about to be in full swing, and then the hockey season, and some talks with Willie Bloomquist came up today as well. So we'll hit on that, and then afterwards we'll bring in our Jake Sloan, another one of our reporters, for a Houston review, and then a first look at the Big 12 championship rematch in Ames this weekend against Iowa State. So just off the top, kind of want to talk about, you know, the football's home winning streak was ended with that loss to Houston over the weekend. A couple injuries going on within the team. That's been kind of unfortunate given the projection and kind of the expectations that were set. You know, top 15 ranked team preseason, now unranked. Just what's kind of been your assessment of this ASU football team and the season so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, different in the sense that we went into the year with expectations, and we knew that would be something new to contend with going into this year. But we sit here midway through the season, a little bit past midway, with we think our goal is still in front of us. And that was Coach's message to the team after the game of, we were a 2-loss team that played in the Big 12 championship last year, probably a 2-loss team that will end up back in Arlington this year. We need to be that 2-loss team, and we need to commit to getting better every single day. Everybody needs to be accountable to what happened Saturday night, find a way to get better this week in practice, and go execute our game plan. Injuries are a part of the game. That's never going to be an excuse for us in football or any of our sports. We are banged up. That's something that we were fortunate last year to not deal with, maybe to the same extent that we are this year. But I'm excited about the trajectory of our program and the fact that we're talking about the disappointment about a home loss for the first time under since I've been AD. I didn't know what to do after the game. It was kind of an odd experience of I don't know, this emotion of losing at home, and the crowds have been amazing. This year, selling out again. We're in a pretty good position to sell out the entire season with West Virginia as homecoming, and then U of A to end the season at home on the 28th. So just the momentum behind the fan base has been incredible, and that's added so much to our in-game atmosphere. That's added so much to how the team can play at home. And so in a way, it's nice that it stings to lose like that, because we do have high expectations and we do want to continue to get better week by week, season by season. But I'm just excited about the direction of our program overall. And a loss against Houston doesn't stunt the momentum or the growth that's happening here in Tempe. Kenny's amazing to work with. He's amazing every day of just looking at the bright side, look at the opportunity to get this team tighter and better. Galvanize his fan base in a way that nobody has in generations here in Tempe, and that's been incredible to be a part of. So we're in a good spot. We want to keep pushing, and a really big matchup, like you mentioned, in Ames. And our first time there, excited to kind of get into Iowa, and as we continue to get to know the landscape in the Big 12. I've not been on this campus before, so eager to get there this weekend and see what it's all about. And we know it's going to be a great game. A lot riding on this particular matchup as we sit here with 4 games left on the conference slate, and we need to win. And I know the coach is doing everything he can this week to prepare the team and be ready for a big game on Saturday.
With how busy that he is, you are, like, what are your in-season conversations like and check-ins look like?
Yeah, I'd say we're in constant conversation, constant communication, phone calls, text, in person, a lot of events, a lot of things that we do that we're both at. Our routine has been a Monday morning, usually at 6 a.m. We're together in the office to kind of
6
recap.
a.m.
Yeah, and I don't want to interrupt their workflow at all. So I'm happy to go to him early on a Monday before they get too far into the week and just recap the weekend. Let's get a few things on the radar that we're talking about going into this week, and it's time well spent. And it's just the two of us. We get a chance to really dive into whatever we need to address. And so that's the scheduled get together. But from there, we might text 25 times a day, talk when necessary. I don't go to practice a lot. I don't see that as great use of my time. We're trying to build a business. We're trying to move the needle away from the practice fields. We've got incredible football minds that can handle that part. I don't see that a good use of time unless we're hosting somebody or unless there's a reason to be there. But I would say constant conversation, constant contact, a lot going on. So I think it's really important that we're synced up and on the same page as often as possible. And so he's great to work with and brings the energy. I tell people all the time, they're like, hey, what's Kenny like? He's exactly what you see on television. He is consistent. He is that way. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. And I love the fact that he is that consistent in the day-to-day interactions, just the way that he is, the way that you see on TV.
I would agree that he is very much exactly what people see in front of a camera privately, which is, I think that's the authenticity matters, I think, with a lot of the kids
for sure
that you're coaching. So you mentioned just the sellouts, the fan expectations, bar being raised and all that. How much have those things all combined improved the overall positioning of ASU athletics right now, and what will that enable perhaps in the future if that continues?
Well, two things. I think the optics matter a lot, and I watched the second half of the game this morning for a couple of different reasons, but it was interesting to watch the broadcast feed versus the game tape that we have in house. And the Houston quarterback in the post-game interview was pointing out I've seen this team come back from this margin before. I watched the TCU game. I know this is a tough environment to play. The commentators and the ESPN broadcasters had that same sentiment of Tempe's on the map as a difficult home field to come in and compete as a visiting team. I think Houston, it's the first time they've beat a top 25 team on the road since maybe 2017. And so that reputation is starting to get out there where teams are understanding that this is a difficult environment to come in and play. And we've seen that benefit happen week after week. And unfortunately, it didn't happen against Houston. But by and large, the last few years, we've seen that home field advantage really come to bear. And I go back to, and I mentioned a couple of times, but the start of last season, Camp T had a different energy. The first game against Wyoming, there was just an electricity in the crowd. It wasn't a sold out, it was sellout, but there was still this great energy in the stadium that night, and it grew week by week. And then fast forward to Kansas. Kansas, I think, was still ranked at the time, went into last year with tremendous expectations. And I remember being on the north end zone under the goalpost, looking back at a full student section. And that's the same time that Kenny goes to a pretty much unproven Sam Levin at that time and says, hey, kid, go win us this game. Methodically drives down the field, 10,000 students in front of him, amazing energy in that stadium. We win a big game, and then the season just continued to kind of ramp up week by week. And so the optics of a sellout crowd, the message that sends to recruits of this fan base is behind you when you come to ASU and play. And then financially, the resources matter. To go into a season where we renewed, I think we got up to 98% renewals, sold out of all of our premium inventory, added almost 8,000 new season ticket holders, and now we're selling out those final 10,000 single game tickets every week. That matters when you're trying to resource your program at a higher level. All that resource flows back into the department and a large part of it into football so we can continue growing this program. So the environment matters. It gives that team that home field edge that is the separator, and we've seen that be the case. And then the energy, the recruiting benefit, and the financial resources that come with that, it just it's infectious and it's important as we continue to get better. Again, week by week, season by season, et cetera.
Sure.
I mean, I've definitely just from being on the sidelines the past 2 seasons known, especially it kind of stood out to me in that Houston game. Mm-hmm. It just felt so much louder. That was kind of the loudest I'd heard Mountain America Stadium since I think the BYU game. And like you said, winning kind of breeds that infectious crowd energy. And after that Texas Tech game, another sellout, and you could really hear it. It was consistent throughout the entire game as well. And obviously much of that is thanks to Kenny Dillingham. The Valley has been activated just as he sought to do. But kind of on the subject of Kenny Dillingham, there's a whole head coaching kind of carousel going on in college football right now. There's been some reports that this might be kind of the most expensive era of college football head coaches that we've seen in a long time. I mean, you look at Curt Cignetti over at Indiana. He just got a massive raise after 1 year after he just got a raise, which was 1 year after he got hired. So in this kind of new era, as things are unfolding, there's so many head coaching vacancies that are popping up, and Kenny Dillingham was asked about it today as well. What do you just kind of make of this whole landscape of college football and the way head coaches are just kind of being thrown in and out?
Yeah, I mean, different time in the sport where you see not only the number of jobs are open, the quality of jobs that are open, the time of year that's kind of atypical from how this has maybe worked historically in college sports. And so it's something that we've got to be mindful of. There's certainly a realistic standpoint of, and it's a compliment that when his name is mentioned tied to some of these job openings, I think it's a credit to the job that he's doing. It's a credit to what this program is turning into and the fact that people are paying attention to what's happening here in Tempe. I don't typically talk about contracts publicly. We like to keep those conversations going, but I will say it's very important that we can continue to show our coaches that there is continued investment behind the work that they're doing. That's why we need to have open communication. That's why we need to be in constant contact about what can we go help find, build, or grow on behalf of the work that our coaches are doing. And that's not just for football. That's for any of our sports where it's a really challenging time to be a college coach. And we may not have seen it in football as much as you're starting to see it in baseball or basketball, where some guys are saying, like, I'm done with this. Like, I don't want to deal with transfer portal. I don't want to deal with NIL. I don't want to deal with an unregulated environment. Tony Vitello is the good example last week of leaving Tennessee baseball to go to the San Francisco Giants. We've got to get some things in order within college sports, or we do run the risk of putting this talent back into pro sports or running them out of college. But more importantly, I think you've got to continue to understand what are the things that are most important to a program, to a coach when they're leading it, and be very mindful of the things that we want to provide, we want to grow, we want to make available. And so our conversations about what are the things that he needs to be successful at ASU right now, next year, and for the long haul, so we can continue to be mindful of the things that we're doing to grow our program. So we're hard at work at all that. And again, like, we're very clear on the things that we want to do from a B2B NIL standpoint. That's a really important separator and a tremendous opportunity for us in a market like Phoenix, where you've got companies big and small, a way to plug them in an NIL to be above the cap as a resource for our athletes. The football facility, I know we'll have a chance to talk about that, is really important. Retaining key staff members, growing the program's budget. All of these things are important. Those are things that we can do at an operational level within the department. But when you're selling out the football stadium, when you're building these incredible partnerships, all those resources allow us to reinvest in our program and I think set our coaches up for success.
It's you mentioned the coordinators, the assistant coaches. You re-signed, gave more money to coordinators, and all the entire assistant coaching staff is back. Mm-hmm. And yet at the same time, we live in this era where there's just more and more resources that are being poured into. You got the GMs and you got all of the off staff resources. And how, as an AD, do you balance that when that is a revenue driver with trying to service all the rest of your sports and make sure that you're adhering to your core values?
Yeah, I mean, that's a daily challenge in this particular moment in college sports, is the cost of doing business is escalating maybe a little bit more than our cost of catching up. Yeah. And that's been a conscious decision for us at ASU and with what we're trying to do in the athletic department. Is I don't believe in professionalizing college sports. I don't think athletes should become employees. I don't think we should sell out to be a copycat to how the professional sports leagues runs. But I do think we need to elevate and sophisticate the way that college sports operates and that we run as a business unit. We're not a professional sport, we are a business unit. And there are aspects of pro sports that work very well in college sports, particularly in a market like ours where, again, you've got a great corporate partner base. We have 1 million people new to the market in the last decade. These are decision makers, they are season ticket holders, they are group buyers, they are people that we can plug into on NIL. And that's a really important part for us to drive the business of our department. Another really critical separator for us is that our corporate partnership is in-house. We're not relying on a third-party rights holder that gives you a guaranteed payout and they take the upside. We want to control our own destiny. We want to manage these relationships with decision makers. We want to drive value on behalf of our partners. They're partners, not sponsors, by design. And so we've got to be daily focused on growing the business within our department so we can reinvest those dollars into retaining coaches and building facilities, investing 26 sports, the most in the Big 12. That's well documented that we've got 4 more than U of A and maybe 1 or 2 other schools. That's a lot of mouths to feed, and that's heavy responsibility, but it's important that we can maintain the portfolio of sports that we have right now. We're big on growing these opportunities for 600 athletes. The sports that we have are there for a reason because they're a connection point for the university. And so we're pushing on that every single day.
And you kind of just briefly touched on it, but football, new indoor practice facility in the works, as well as a multi-year, a huge renovation of Desert Financial Arena. What can you say just about like an update regarding that and what that can do for the program?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of exciting news on the facility front. We announced a couple weeks ago the renovation of Desert Financial Arena, the first phase that's starting next summer. Long awaited, long discussed. And so it's kind of the beginning phase of a bottom to top renovation that we'll do in the arena. So removing the court, putting in a ton of new electrical and technology infrastructure that will support the building as it grows, putting the new court back in, adding more courtside inventory, which is very important from a fan experience and a revenue generation standpoint, redoing that first round of lower the telescoping seats that come out, adding some handrails for fan safety. These are all parts of the first phase. And then we've got some documents out on the street for the architect and development community to really pick our partner that can help map out the specifics of phase 2 and phase 3 while we're simultaneously fundraising for that. So that's exciting. Certainly as we get going in basketball season next week, that we want to signal that we're making strides to improve that game day, much like I feel like we started to do at Mountain America Stadium. The football facility is priority 1A2, right? Desert Financial Arena, the football facility are critically important for the success of our department. And we're, I've got some renderings. I don't know how well this will show up.
Let's throw it up.
Old school printed, but a little site plan, right next to the north part of the stadium in the parking lot. We'll have the covered facility, the outdoor field. We're trying to bring a volleyball practice facility, which is very much needed, into the project as well, and fundraise separately for that. So, really just that convenience aspect of it. There's a couple cool renderings, not to scale, not to final, but you can kind of get a sense of covered but not enclosed, outdoor field adjacent to it. So not final by any means, but kind of the working versions that we've been working on. And again, incredible tool for football. We want to maximize their time getting better every single day. And then as coach has talked about on the weekend, flip it into an incredible game day experience. Friday morning, this pivots into the place to be on game day.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot. It happened a lot over the weekend about we're losing tailgating space. There's pressure on the spaces that we do have tailgating. We want to start to solve for that. And when you've got a facility that can be a great tool for football during the week, a great game day amenity on a Saturday in the fall, having parcels out there, having people with naming rights entitlements to it, having these incredible zones to have live music, great food, a place to come together, some protection from the sun earlier in the season.
Sure.
We think these are really, really worthwhile projects. So fundraising is alive and well. We're finalizing plans on the football facility. We've got websites being launched. We already have a great momentum behind fundraising for it. We have some big asks that we're hoping to close in the next couple of weeks, and we need to get this thing in the ground as soon as humanly possible.
Someone told me that several $1 million have been pledged toward this.
Yeah, I mean, it's going well out the gate, and that started over the summertime when we started to really be able to talk in more specifics of it. Now we've got some plans and some visuals that we can tie to it. We got an update on Friday on kind of refining the plan, and the coaches have had a chance to look at it and really provide some feedback to make sure that first and foremost, it's the right football tool. And we may not get a crack at doing one of these again for a while, so it needs to be done right. And the bubble's been good to us. We need it to be closer. There's some modern football technology that we can incorporate. And I give Coach a lot of credit for this vision on making it an incredible game day amenity at the same time. So, yeah, a ton of money in so far. Our fundraising team's working very hard at that. We're very grateful for the support that we've been getting. We need more. We're driving that every single day in hopes of getting in the ground as soon as we possibly can.
Kenny mentioned wanting to have a 16th hole atmosphere like the Waste Management Open. Like, how viable is having that? What are the amenities that might be possible, and how can that drive additional monetization opportunities?
Well, I think it does all of the above. Again, the 16th hole is world famous now for being the place to be adjacent to the golf tournament. And we've started to see that take place during the football season. He had this incredible quote after the BYU game last year of Mountain America Stadium being the place to be on Saturdays in the fall. And we're seeing that play out. And so we want to continue to drive a better version of that game day. And so solving for the tailgating, because we get that feedback a lot. We know that this is an area that we want to continue to improve. Having live music, DJ stages, live music, having areas that you can pre-rent on a game-by-game basis, on a season-by-season basis, maybe locking it down for 5 years where you're paying for the right to have the Chris Cartman dedicated tailgating area, invite your buddies, host your business clients, whatever the case may be. And our market is so good at that hospitality, and there's not a version of that exists in the fall right now. And so let us fill the void of being the place to be Saturdays in the fall around Sun Devil football. And whatever you're into, wherever you're from, it's the gathering spot before you go into the game that you're on the Sun Devils. I think it's an incredible vision, and we want to bring that to life.
Now, we've seen what Mullet Arena has done for this hockey program as well. It's a state-of-the-art facility.
Yep.
Chris and I asked new players, freshmen, transfers, why'd you want to come to Arizona State? Why did you choose to go to school here? And most of their answers are, why wouldn't I want to come here? It's in the desert, it's beautiful weather, and this is like a professional facility. So do you think these renovations that you're making to DFA, as well as the implementation of this new indoor practice facility, can kind of have that same impact on recruits and like an in-game experience type of vibe?
I do. And I do believe that facilities still matter. And the coaches need to be the most important reason. And a lot of times we'll have recruits ask us opinion of, what do you think? And it's a personal decision. Like, you need to come into the recruiting process knowing what you want to get out of your college experience. Hopefully that starts with great place to get an education, great place to get better at your sport because you believe in the coaches. From there, the resources matter. The quality of the place that you're going to live, the quality of the facilities that you're going to use every single day, they do matter. They're important signals to a recruit or a family, like looking at your physical space to understand, are you truly committed to this experience? Do you really want my son or daughter to get better when they come to ASU? And so there's still a place for facilities to matter. And again, we're lucky at a place like ASU where we have access to great partners, great technology, great things that we can bring in to really enhance performance, focus on recovery, focus on time together, focus on storytelling and the history, focus on content creation in the ways that we need to in a lot of our facilities. So yeah, I know a lot of people default to rev share, NIL, the modern tools of recruiting. Well, coaching still matters a lot. And the most important decision we're always going to make are the coaches that we bring in. Facilities matter a lot because these are the places that you're in every single day trying to get better. And so they matter in recruiting, they matter in team performance, they matter in game day. And we want to solve for all that. We have a responsibility to try to simplify our world. It's a complicated time in college sports. But I look at my job and our job in the department as resourcing our coaches at the highest level. They are the ones leading our athletes every single day. They need the tools to do their job at the highest level that we can provide. The way for us to do that is by building an incredible game day, an incredible fan experience where people are showing up consistently with volume, making an investment that we can put into the coaches and their ability to do their job. And so, Gabby, to answer the question, it matters in recruiting, it matters in performance, and it helps us drive the resources that we need to do 1 and 2.
You've done a lot of work already on improving game day environments for football. That's been an emphasis. How is that going? And then how much do you think that DFA's renovation will eventually be able to provide an atmosphere and an experience for fans that continues to keep their investment high?
Yeah, we have to think about game day, particularly in football, basketball, hockey, volleyball, baseball, softball, every single day. Those are 7 sports that really make or break our year financially. And so they're very commercially viable. There's a lot of momentum in all of them. We're seeing that hockey's got 102% attendance.
Yeah.
It's a hard ticket to get. Well, probably one of the hardest sports tickets to get in the Valley right now. Baseball set attendance records last year for total attendance and average game attendance. Volleyball is nearing a top 10 program in attendance in a sport that's an absolute rocket ship right now in college sports. Women's basketball starts November 3rd next week. We've sold more season tickets this year than we have the past 3 years combined. So all these sports really matter in terms of driving that volume, driving that business. We have to think about that game day every single day. And I don't know that that's a part of the job that's ever done. I want to be in a constant mindset of provoking our capabilities in a sense of like not resting on what worked last year, but start to think about what do we need to do next year. So that constant evolution of getting feedback from our fans. Our season ticket holder surveys are some of the most important information that we get. That really drives a lot of decision making in the building. I'm trying to be active on social media to the extent that's possible. You get a lot of just anecdotal feedback from people that way, sending pictures, calling you out on the mean tweets. I get some of those as well, but all that's informative to the kind of decisions that we need to be driving. And then the beauty of being in the Big 12, being in a new conference where you're traveling around, you're seeing new places. Everywhere that we go in the conference, you come back with an idea or two, minus maybe one school that
Sure.
hard to borrow ideas from them. But for the most part, it's great to be.
About?
Who am I talking about? We have great fans in Southern Arizona, so I'll gladly be around them. But it's fun to travel. It's fun to see these things. My wife always jokes I'm the worst person to go to a restaurant or an event with because I'm always looking around of like I like how they presented the brand that way. I like how they're doing this customer service. I like how they've got the menu, whatever the case may be, because we're always able to bring these ideas back into what we do. We're sports, we're hospitality, we're live entertainment, we're customer service, we're client services. We're all these incredible industries under one umbrella within the athletic department. And so feedback presents itself in all ways. And so I like the fact that we're in a position and we've got a group of people in our athletic department that are constantly focused on getting better on what we provide to our fans, getting better on how we resource our coaches. And I don't think that work ever stops.
It's been about a year and a half since you were hired as ASU's athletic director. And within that time, we've seen so much go on with, you touched on it briefly, NIL, revenue sharing, and how that is all kind of dispersed within an athletic program. What impacts does that have kind of on just an athletic department in general? And what's it been like for you kind of trying to navigate? Because it seems like something new is just happening with it every day.
Yeah, I think that's the blessing of being a first-time AD is I'm not used to the way it used to be done. And I've got to wake up every day preparing for uncertainty, preparing for something new, preparing for the other shoe to drop. And so that really helps sharpen our focus when you don't know what tomorrow looks like. You don't understand what a January portal window is going to be like or what next summer is going to be like. And so we've always got to just be convicted in the decisions that we're making, but also mindful of we need to be responsive to the environment. We need to survey the situation that we're in at any given time of the year with any given sport. But I'm having a blast, and it's been a lot of fun to just run into people across town that say it feels good to feel good. It feels good to see optimism around our department. It feels good to see our coaches so connected to the community. It feels good to see great kids representing our sports. I think that's the part that we don't talk about enough is the quality of human being competing on behalf of ASU in any of our sports. These are young men and young women that you would want around your kids. You would want representing your brand. You would want around you in the community because they're just incredibly motivated young people navigating a very difficult time in their space where they've all got dreams and aspirations for when their time at ASU is done. A lot of those right now are focused on playing at the next level professionally, internationally, whatever the case may be, certainly in an Olympic cycle coming up with the LA Olympics coming up. That's a great thing to feed. That's a purposeful part of our work of helping these young people pursue their passions, giving them the resources to be successful, putting them on a pathway to success. Mother Nature's undefeated, right? And so it's hard to have an 18, 19, 20-year-old think about when your sport is done, what do you want to be prepared to do? I look at that as really the fundamental responsibility for us, besides winning, besides resourcing our coaches, of preparing these young people for the day that their sport is done. Whether that's next spring or whether that's 15 years from now, are we preparing them to enter society in a way that they can contribute, they can add value to others, and they can pay their experience forward? So it's meaningful work. It sharpens our focus every single day. All you need to do is walk into the Carson Center and bump into an athlete, ask them how they're doing. They're going to tell you how they feel. They're going to tell you what they like. They're going to tell you what you need more of. That allows us to really tighten what we're working on at any given moment. And then at the same time, be convicted in the plan that we've got, be convicted in the decision or the direction that we want to bring the department. And again, that's a part of the job that I don't see, that we're never going to get to a point 2 years from now, 10 years from now, where you look up and like, yeah, we got it. There's always going to be that next thing. There's always going to be more that we can do on behalf of our coaches, our athletes, or our fan base. And it drives us every day.
Your hiring coincided with Dr. Crow saying that the auxiliary enterprise that had been ASU Athletics was a thing of the past, and it was being incorporated into ASU more broadly. What has that meant for facilities projects or the Novus corridor or any of those things? Yeah. And especially in light of the $18 million that you're giving to student athletes now as part of revenue sharing, and how the budget actually functions with athletics.
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, and I don't know that the details will matter to people as much as the way that we try to simplify it of athletically related revenues, ticket sales, donations, corporate partnerships feed athletically related outcomes, hiring and retaining coaches, building out our facilities with sports-specific technology, equipment, et cetera, focusing on sports performance more than we're focused on deferred maintenance would probably be the way that we would simplify it. And what that means is there are expenses that happen across a university that we haven't, or that we've been mindful of spending within athletics as of late before this model, because we could make money. We had to cover all of our associated expenses. That's not the case throughout the entire university. And so we've been able to really right size the financial model within our department in a way that allows us to drive revenues that equate to athletic outcomes, which is a healthy approach, in my opinion. And it's something that other schools are starting to look at and thinking about replicating. But where it really benefits us of not having us on an island away from campus, but having us fully integrated into ASU is your alums. Like, our university is fascinating, right? And when we can say that the answer to anything we're trying to solve for lives at ASU or because of ASU, we just need to be smart enough to know where to point the periscope and who to ask for a connection, a resource, an introduction, a collaboration. I mean, we're seeing it self-manifest time and time again. And I'll bring up volleyball as a great example. JJ Van Neal, third year, unbelievable coach, probably our most resourceful head coach in terms of using the ASU engine.
Hired by you.
I was on the committee. Yeah,
Okay.
I was on.
I've heard that you were very instrumental
I was on the committee
in that hire.
My wife played volleyball, so it was important that we got that right. Otherwise, I'd be reminded daily if we messed that up. But
you did.
He's exceeded expectations. And the cool part about JJ is, like, he is very curious intellectually about the place that he represents. And as he's selling it to recruits and showcasing our university, he's like, hey, you know what? There's a part of College of Health Solutions that will really benefit what we're doing on sports performance. Or I want to use Luminosity as a way to help me with roster management analytics. There's research efforts that ASU and Adidas are doing that he's talked to about textile performance and equipment ideas that could benefit volleyball. So he's this restless soul in a way that's only good in terms of his curiosity, but he's constantly saying, like, who do we know that does X, Y, Z? I need an introduction. I want to tap into this dean. I want to tap into this department in ways that are benefiting his program, because he's enriching the tools that he can provide for his athletes. So it's no surprise that you look up and here they are on, I think, an 11-game win streak, number 6 in the country, first place in the Big 12 once again, at a program that was dormant 4 years ago. And to be top 10 in attendance, to be top 10 in performance, it's a credit to him tapping into the ASU engine. That's been a really good model for the rest of our head coaches to look at and see, hey, I may not have everything here. It may not be perfect at any given time, but you've got the ability to go find the things that you need to be successful. Our coaches have to adopt that entrepreneurial mindset the way that Coach Dillingham, Coach Van Neal, and others have. And when they do, and when they're curious, and when they can bring us the questions and we can solve for that, we're finding a way to bring them some resources. One example I would share is 2 years ago, we had 22 different people touching sport administration for 26 sports. We have 2 right now. JD Laudebarger, Marcus Williams are doing an incredible job leading our sport administration. And the thought process was, we don't need them to be subject matter experts on the sports. We need them to have a deep understanding of what each sport is navigating within their respective program, within the contract of the Big 12, within the overall environment at NCAA level, within their sport, and come back to the table with the ideas of the things that we're trying to solve for, so we can make a more educated decision on 6 sports are looking for the same kind of tool, the same kind of technology. Let's go solve for that at a departmental level and not leave it to every head coach or the sport administrators that were almost like individual advocates for their head coach. We're not making sound, broad decisions that make sense on behalf of the department. So we need insights. Those insights, when 2 people have a depth of understanding of what our coaches, what our programs need to be successful, they can bring that back to the table, and we can really affect change on behalf of multiple programs in a way that we're seeing play out with the kind of success that we're seeing across a number of our sports right now.
And just about, like we mentioned at the top, just about every sport for fall and winter is about to be in full swing here. Men's basketball tips off next week, as well as women's.
It's exciting.
But Bobby Hurley, entering the last year of his contract, an entirely new roster, something that's kind of unprecedented, minus 1 player. What have you just made with how he's kind of tried to push forward, and a lot of international players coming in as well? What have you made of just his roster rebuild? The team picked to finish last in the Big 12 preseason poll, but we've seen that before. So just your analysis kind of preseason of what he's done.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this team plays out. It is an entirely new roster. Trevor's the only returning player. He was only with us for half a season, didn't get a chance to get a ton of minutes. And so by all accounts, it's a brand new roster coming in. And Bobby doesn't make excuses. He deals with the hand that he's dealing with. And, coming off last year that we had a lot of expectations, a lot of excitement for superstar freshmen, some key transfers coming in. It didn't play out the way that any of us would have hoped. And that was not how we saw last season mapping out. But he goes back to work and comes up with, hey, I've got a pathway to get some international talent, some veteran guys that are more experienced. And I give him a lot of credit for just problem solving in the moment, not making excuses about what didn't work well last year. He immediately went to work on saying, I'm going to go build the best team I can. We're going to see what we can do together. And after the season, we'll deal with what we need to deal with. There's a noticeably different physicality. There's a noticeably different togetherness across this team. We got to see how it translates. And so I'm really excited for them to get underway next week. With Southern Utah coming in, and it'll be fun to kind of get them out the gate and understand how this team's going to perform and gel. When you go in the gym, like, they enjoy each other, and it is playing as a team. And the only thing I asked Coach to really focus on after the season last year was 1 through 15. Let's make sure we're getting contributions from everybody in that roster. A lot of games last year, we were in it until the final 2 or 3 minutes. There were foul troubles, there were injuries, there was a lack of depth. I feel very confident that 1 through 15 will be able to score, rebound, eat minutes, take fouls, wherever the case may be, and maybe that's something that helps us close the gap this year.
You mentioned JJ Van Neal's dynamic, characteristics, the intellectual curiosity that he has.
Yep.
Is that something that's really a hallmark of what you're looking for in the hiring process with coaches, and with Molly Miller specifically going into her first season? What have you thought about just what she's accomplished to this point, and how positioned that this program is to create a foundation at the launching point?
Yeah, Molly's been such a fascinating case study in that she could have gone anywhere. I mean, every open job was talking to her. She was on their list. She picked us, and that says a lot about what we're starting to build. And it feels good that somebody that SEC schools are willing to say, we'll give you everything that you need and then some. Come be the leader of our program. And she's like, there's something going on at ASU that I want to be a part of, and I want to be a part of growing it. And we had very honest conversations about that process. Like, Molly, we are not perfect. We are in growth mindset. We are trying to build every single day. We're not going to have everything you need right out the gate, but I can promise you're going to have a teammate in the athletic department that's going to have those conversations with you. We're going to value your feedback. We're going to try to solve for the things that you deem most appropriate as you grow your program. And so it's been a blast to work with her. She is so much like Kenny in her just relentless mindset to connect and build and resource her players in a way that is leading to culture. It's leading to success. They beat USC yesterday. We had a close scrimmage. I think USC's top 20 to start the year. Yeah. They played unbelievably well. And after the game, she's like, man, there's things we need to tighten up. And so, not satisfied, proud of the moment, but going back to look at some tape and sharpen up. There was a noticeably different energy on that team. It was fun to watch. It was entertaining basketball. It was every bit of that in-your-face defense that she talked about. LT Poa scored 4 points in about a millisecond. Layup, stole a pass on the inbound, another layup, and went back to defend. And so I can't wait for them to get underway next week. There's just big energy around it. But where Molly, Kenny, JJ, and others have really had success is they are tapped in at all levels of the university. They are visible leaders of their program, connecting in the community. They are rallying behind building a fan base that are welcoming people behind the scenes in a way that just, it's infectious for fans to be able to connect in that way. And it moves the needle. It moves the needle in terms of support. It moves the needle in terms of reputation. It moves the needle in terms of the perception of the program. And if nothing else, people are curious about what's going on with our women's basketball season. And so I know we're expecting good energy in the building next week as they get underway. Can't wait for them to get started. It's been a lot of fun to work with them.
And another coach who's been kind of a pioneer in his sport and bringing it up at ASU, Greg Powers. Yep. I mean, like you mentioned, hockey, one of the hardest tickets to get from a student standpoint, even getting tickets just as a fan. And first season in the NCHC last year, being a club program just about a decade ago, and now playing in what is widely considered the best conference in college hockey.
Right.
Picked to finish 8th out of 9 teams, made it all the way to the Frozen Face-Off in St. Paul. What's your 2 seed, and not 8 seed. So what was your assessment as ASU opens up NCHC play this weekend, just of the team's first year in the conference?
Yeah, I mean, you cover the sport, so you've heard this be the tradition mantra for quite some time. And so it was cool to have that final piece of the puzzle joining the NCHC. That had been a goal for the program for quite some time. That was always the conference that we felt was the best fit for us. And so to go in and start to find our footing in a really, really talented conference. I think 7 of the last 8 national champions come from the NCHC. Every weekend's a gauntlet, just like we see in a lot of the Big 12 sports. So really proud of that first year in the conference. And it was fun to go to St. Paul for the Frozen Face-Off last year that it was in the NHL building. Just a sense of pride that this program is continuing to get better every year. There's something new, opening up Mullet Arena 4 years ago, joining the conference last year, and now, faced with the reality of there's not a player on the roster that played at Oceanside. That's kind of a sobering reality that you realize, like, all of a sudden these guys have moved on. They're playing the ECHL, the AHL, and they don't have that origin story of what it was like to be grinding it out in front of 800 fans without the facilities that we have at Mullet. And now we've got every tool that we need to recruit at a high level and coach and lead at a high level. So really excited for Coach Powers. I think it's one of the more incredible success stories that's come out of ASU, with him specifically as a member of the club program, as a goalie, assistant coach, head coach, winning into national championship, overseeing this transition to Division I, having success when nobody gave him the ability or the maybe the credit that he has deserved. But he's built it, and that growth mindset and the fact that he's not satisfied with where we are. He's got his eyes set on Las Vegas. He wants to keep pushing the envelope of what hockey at ASU can be. I don't know when we'll see another origin story like we're seeing right now in Sun Devil hockey, particularly because in the absence of NHL, hopefully we get NHL back to the market in the near term. We're huge advocates and huge proponents of that. But there's a void in the hockey community in Arizona right now, and I've mentioned this publicly many times. The day the Coyotes announced they were moving to Utah, Greg called up. He's like, hey, our responsibility. We've got to be the ones that are leading grassroots hockey. We've got to be the ones that are developing the sport. We need to do officiating clinics. We need to be youth clinics. We need to do girls in hockey clinics. And Lindsey Fry from the Coyotes is still a great friend and a great partner. And so we're doing all those things. And it's fun that it's translated into fan support. It's fun that energy in Mullet Arena is so fun. We're eager to get them back next weekend for Colorado College. That'll be a fun weekend as we get going. But yeah, it's kind of, you blink and here we are starting conference play at Miami this weekend already. And it's wild to think that we're at that part of the year, but excited about the path of hockey. Some fun announcements will be coming out in that program here in a couple of weeks as well. But on a great trend line for sure.
We also already got a fall ball update from Willie Bloomquist today.
Yep.
The press conference, very informative. Baseball is so near and dear to your heart, ASU baseball. And there have been a lot of changes in that sport as well. The increased scholarships should have a big impact. Team made a regional, right?
Yep.
Aspirations for more, of course. ASU fans, they want to see a return to the glory years of ASU baseball. Where do you think that the program is at, and how do you see the year ahead now?
Yeah, I'm excited about the trend line in baseball. I'll bring softball in that same conversation. Both programs having really important seasons last year, getting back into that NCAA tournament, having some success in the Big 12. And as it relates to baseball specifically, you mentioned going from 11.7 scholarships to a 34, having the tools to recruit at a high level in the sport now. It's been a game changer. It's been a game changer, not only at a time and place in college baseball specifically, but even for Coach Bloomquist, where, I mean, think about this. Like, he was given the keys to the program 4 years ago without any experience. And I don't know that he was entirely set up for success as that was rolled out. And it is what it is. But he has made it his life's work to understand the sport, understand the dynamics of coaching, of leading, of roster management, all these things at the craziest time in the history of college baseball, and is really starting to find his voice and has made some tweaks to assistant coaches. We've got one of the best pitching coaches in America, and Jeremy Accardo, who's got a great lineage here in the Valley, great relationships that's really translated into having homegrown pitching talent stay here. I didn't see Willie's comments. I don't know if he talked about it, but part of the blueprint now is find Arizona pitching, develop it, keep it, grow it within the program, knowing that the transfer portal continues to be very fertile for us, getting middle infielders, getting outfielders up the middle. Kids want to come to Arizona and play. They want to hit here. They want to play for this coaching staff. They know they're going to get scouted enormously well in the Valley with spring training and the baseball community that we have. And so very, very positive trend line for baseball. excited about the team that he's got. Same thing that we mentioned in basketball. There's a noticeable physicality on this baseball roster when you go out there. I've not had a chance to see many of their workouts, but the reports are that there is a next level of talent. And the group that got drafted last year, I think we had the most top 10 round draft picks of any program in America, maybe tied with one or two others. But that was a lot of talent going to pro ball. That was also talent that we were just at the mercy of who we could find that wanted to take a belief in Willie, belief in our program. Now there's more of a body of work. Now there's the fact that you're getting guys like Luke Keishore to the big leagues quickly. You're getting guys drafted where they're getting signing bonuses. They're getting a fast track and a player development system. And they're playing very meaningful baseball at a school that really, really cares about the sport. And we talked about it earlier, but we set a total attendance program record, a average attendance program record, and a single game attendance record last year in baseball. So that tells me our fans are bought in on Willie. They like the direction of the program. They're having a great time at the ballpark. There's so much more we could do at Phoenix Community. We're talking about that as well. And so I'm really excited to kind of turn the page into the new year, knowing that baseball and softball are primed for more momentum. Softball, I mean, what Megan did in the portal this summer, same thing, more scholarships in softball, getting a chance to really be aggressive with not only transfer additions, but also high school additions that are on the team this year or in the pipeline to come next fall. Both spring sports in a really, really strong position. And I'm excited to kind of feed that growth where we can.
Willie was asked today at his press conference about his contract situation. He had 1 year, one season left. He said to ask you. So we just happen to have you today.
So we're asking you.
Fair question. I mean, yeah, like I'm a big believer in Willie. I've known him for 25 years. I know how much this program means to him. I've had a very up close view of his progression, his growth, his maturation as a head coach. I have big belief in Willie. I don't like to talk about contract status publicly. We're working through a number of our coaches that deserve extra years added to their contracts. We try to bring that together as part of an overall process. So without talking about specifics, I kind of mentioned my optimism for the growth of the program. And when there's news to share, we'll gladly share that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you again for your time. Chris, we're very fortunate to be at a school in a landscape where athletic director and so many of the coaches are so media friendly and an open book for the most part, just about everything that goes on. It's very insightful for the fans, obviously. Yeah. So we thank you again for your time. With that, is there anything else that you would like to share as far as what's going on with ASU athletics?
Yeah, I mean, never dull moment. Thank you guys for the coverage. This is cool that we're sitting here on a Monday night, getting a chance to talk about Sun Devil sports. We've got incredible coverage. The fact that you all make the effort and the expense to be on the road. We're just talking about traveling to Ames and going through Denver and fighting through weather or time changes to be there. That means a lot. And that, I think, is another great sign of the growth of a department where there are established media outlets, there are emerging media outlets. You guys have an incredible following. I don't get on the message boards. I learned that lesson of like that's a double-edged sword.
Mostly positive, Graham. Mostly positive for you.
But you can't unsee certain things, and I have feelings too, right? So I'm cognizant of that. But I think we're very fortunate to be in a place like Phoenix in the Valley where there is incredible fan base. There's room for more. We're lucky to have the kind of media coverage that we have. The Big 12 has been a great fit for us. We're all romantics about the Pac-10, Pac-12. That doesn't exist the way that we're part of. And the fact that we've all been able to embrace the Big 12, I hope you all have enjoyed being on these new campuses as much as we have. The travel from our fan base has been unbelievable. Everywhere we've been, these 2 football seasons, there's been a very noticeable, evident presence of ASU fans. That makes a difference. When you're at Baylor and you look up in a close game and there's maroon and gold, they're green and gold, but there's maroon and gold T-shirts all over McLean Stadium.
That game.
That matters. I expect a lot of fandom in Ames this weekend, a lot of curiosity about a school that's known to have a great fan base. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's a good time to be a Sun Devil. We're in growth mindset. We're trying to push the limits of what we're capable of. We're trying to instill confidence in our fan base. We do it together. It takes the media. It takes the fan base. It takes the business community. It takes the people that work within ASU to keep pushing the limits on what we're capable of. And it's a fun and proud thing to represent.
I think that's true. We're all trying to push our limits and go to all the coverage and things that we can possibly do.
Yep.
And you guys have made it extremely easy and inviting for media to be able to do that.
Yep.
Since you've been the AD, and some of the coaches also have been phenomenal to work with. So we appreciate that.
Are we ready to audible off of the Arnold Palmers?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
My kidneys will thank you for that. But yeah, Grant, I don't even know how. I just quick backstory on this, right? We're going on the road last year. I'm noticing places that have iced tea and lemonade. I'm having several. And then I realized ASU wins every time I do this.
Yep.
And then I put that out on social media, and that thing went like nuts.
Yep.
And then
that was before the Big 12 championship game.
Several games.
Or U of A, right?
Yeah, a few games. U of A was the first time that I think I showed up at my spot in the press box there, and there's 4 Arnold Palmers, and I'm going.
It's like 80 ounces of sugar, right?
Well, listen.
It's the tall ones, too. It's the big guys.
A secret is that I think I did say 4.
I think this is some product placement for you guys. Like, let's convert this, right?
I really should get it. Arizona Ice.
They have a flavor portfolio, right?
Yeah, like what are we doing? But I was making my own 4. And then that became 4 tall boys and then it was like, oh boy, I'm in trouble here.
All right, I'm taking requests. So if we want to evolve into the next iteration, if it works, hey, we'll try anything. We're all superstitious.
We'll figure it out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been known to double up on some socks. It happens, right?
Yeah.
So,
you might have to throw that in there on your road game fit photos or
absolutely,
whatever.
Yeah. I'm probably not able to unravel that one, right? Like I get asked about that often. So yeah, you're going to see what I'm wearing. You're welcome.
Last question. What is the biggest misperception or thing that you hear a lot that you're always like trying to make sure that people understand? If there is anything, that's putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
On that one, but
that it's like a dictatorship, right? Like I'm the czar of decision making on behalf of all things athletics, all things Big 12, all things Adidas, all things colorways. It's a big job. There's a lot of different responsibilities. It takes a team. We're lucky that we've got an incredible team within our department to push it. But I think people think like, hey, you're the AD at a snap of a finger. Like you should be able to part the seas and walk on water. And it's a team. There's an incredible coordination behind what we do. We've got 300 people in the department that make this thing go. But it's funny, like you get on sometimes. I'm like, wow, like, they think we've got some real juice to be able to, like go snap your fingers and let's go like join a conference, build a facility, dominate all levels of a sport from the NFL to Pop Warner. And we're working. We're trying to get there.
But the expectations are good,
yeah,
right?
Pressure is a privilege. I will gladly admit that. I would much rather people be critical because they want us to be better than to be apathetic or frustrated and just accepting a mediocre product. I don't want to be mediocre at anything I do. I don't want that for our fan base. I don't want that for our programs. And so pressure is most definitely a privilege.
Well, Graham, we'll see you in Ames this weekend. Myself, Chris, Jake, we'll all be there. And if we're audibilizing off the Arnold Palmers, I don't know if I've been on a road trip with you since Texas Tech last year, where we didn't have to stop at like 3 or 4 gas stations before the game.
And then he still had it taken care of by the time we showed up in the press box.
In Starkville. I think you still had them, and we still stopped at like four different gas stations on the Mississippi State campus.
We doubled up, but we will now move off of that.
Okay, well, let me know when you figure it out. And Jake's on the road. How's Jake's road record?
Have you been?
Jake, he's off camera. Yeah. ASU.
So I was at Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship.
Okay. 2-1.
2-1.
And the loss was like, if there was a good loss, that was a good loss. So
one.
All right, he's a good addition to the travel.
He's able to
travel
go?
squad. Yeah.
I think I'm the opposite. I'm like 1-3.
Don't tell us that.
Counterbalancing.
If her ticket gets lost this weekend, then
Leave her in Denver for the layover.
But you know what?
That's my hometown anyway. I'll just go home.
Instead of that, Graham, we'll just have the fans blame you for choosing the road combination uniform.
Okay, let's talk about this. Are we at time? Do we have a few? Do we have 30 seconds? I'm in no place. I'm in no rush.
We're not going anywhere. If you want to keep talking,
this is a great answer to your earlier question. The misnomer is that like I'm in an ivory tower picking uniforms. I've got no interest in doing that. The Pat Tillman Leadership Council picks out the uniforms. So most times they've loved them. I know we've had a few misses over the years, but that is a player-led decision. We have a number of combinations. Our equipment team does an incredible job coming up with options, taking feedback. The throwback last week was killer. Last weekend, I get it. People didn't love it. But sometimes you try some things and maybe it works better than you planned. But that is a Pat Tillman Leadership Council decision. Coach believes in that. I'm happy to support the football team making that decision on uniforms. Sparky never left. I love Sparky. I try to wear Sparky as often as possible. We've got 2 incredible logos. It is a very heated debate and discussion on abandon the pitchfork, only do Sparky, or let's utilize both. But I do enjoy the design and development of uniforms. I do get a chance to dabble in that. That's been a fun thing I've been able to do my entire career, back to my baseball program days, to my time at the D-backs with I'm proud of City Connect and Serpientes. I'm not as proud as like the bloody pant leg that we rolled out in 2015 or 16. That was a miss. The throwbacks were a ton of fun to work on. Next year's throwback is unbelievable. So
little teaser,
little teaser for next year's strategy uniform. That's going to be a little nod to another great team that may or may not be celebrating an anniversary next season. So it's fun to be a part of the design and development.
Our board is already going to figure this out.
Good thing you're not on the board.
Yeah, they're going to figure that out real quick.
Okay, but in full disclosure, there were obvious teases to this year's blackout. There were obvious teases to this year's throwback, and I don't think it was until the week of the TCU blackout game that somebody put 2 and 2 together of like, that black jersey in the bookstore may be the blackout jersey that they're wearing on the field. I was like, man, it's been there for 3 months. So we have we call them Easter eggs. There's little Easter eggs that we kind of plan along the way. And that's a fun part. But the actual uniform combos selected by the Pat Tillman Leadership Council, and I think that's a fun thing for those guys to get a chance to weigh in on.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well,
and our content team does an unbelievable job putting it together. Yeah. So I know I'm tangenting you, but
no, you're good.
Well, there you have it. Graham Rossini, not the ASU football fashion designer.
No.
So for anybody who thought that is now debunked. Thank you again for your time. Like I said, we'll see you in Ames this weekend. We'll be back after a quick word from our sponsors with Jake Sloan for a review of that Houston game and then a preview of Iowa State. Graham, thank you so much.
Thanks, Gabby.
We'll be back in a couple minutes.
Thanks, Chris.
Welcome back inside Rack Scottsdale for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. You just saw our in-depth conversation with Graham Rossini, lasted just about an hour. So again, we thank him for his time and hopefully that provided some good insight to you guys watching at home as well. We're now joined by Jake Sloan, like I mentioned before the break, Houston review, and then an Iowa State first look. This is a game that many fans have had circled on their calendar ever since that schedule dropped and after, of course, Big 12 championship last year. So just off the top, Chris, yesterday you broke the news that Charlie Regal, ISU special teams coordinator, will be taking a medical-related leave of absence to the team. I know you've known him for a very long time. You have a good relationship with him. So what all can you say about that?
Yeah, tough situation. He's had some health issues off and on for some years. And the stress of kind of what has been going on recently has been exacerbated. ISU's, everybody understands, special teams have been really problematic. We've talked about it a lot on our post-game shows and our podcast. And there was a point in Saturday where I think it came to a head. And Charlie Regal went in on Sunday and he said to Kenny Dillingham that his health was becoming problematic and he wanted to take a leave of absence. And Kenny Dillingham said, of course, that's one of his biggest mentors in life, someone that he played for at Chaparral High School in the late 2000s. After Regal had been a GA at ASU in 2006, that's when I met him. That was my second year covering the team. Went on to be a three-time state championship high school coach and very formative in a lot of professional players and Kenny Dillingham's development. And the fact is that when you have all this stress and pressure and you want to do well and it matters so much that you're working with somebody that you care a lot about and you have all this stuff matters so much to them. It just had a cumulative wear and tear, I think, on Regal. And he decided he wanted to take a step back. Kenny Dillingham said today that maybe in the future, several months, 6 months, who knows, Regal could come back and return to be part of the staff in some capacity. I don't know if that'll be special teams or what. And now Jack Nudo, who's their assistant special teams coordinator, young coach, a lot of Valley ties, is going to be taking on that responsibility with Kenny Dillingham personally being a lot more involved in special teams in recent weeks, as he has said. And now he's kind of taking that to the next level. They've had full team meetings that didn't translate well against Houston. As we talked about ad nauseum, they had the 2 missed field goals, bad snap on one of them. They had 4 penalties on special teams that really put them in bad field position and contributed to them not being able to get offensive momentum, building off of that. And so now we'll see how the players rally and respond to this. And also, of course, we wish Charlie Regal the best with his health. Send a message to him, saying as much. And it has been an issue with the Sun Devils and going to be continuing under the spotlight moving forward.
Well, yeah, like you said, wishing and thinking about him for a speedy, recovery and in that regard. But kind of on that note of special teams, Chris, we've been talking about it in our post-game shows for a little bit now, and Jake, you too. But just everything special teams hasn't been quite where up to standard. And Kenny Dillingham said at the beginning of the season, the special teams should be much improved. That hasn't been the case. So what has your guys' assessments been as to everything going on with special teams?
Well, they added Jesus Gomez. I think he's a good kicker. They've had some operational issues with snapping, holding, timing. He's made a lot of kicks. It's 3-time Big 12 Player of the Week already. So that's tells you that there's something really positive there. He did miss a kick. I think he tends to be on the left hash, not as good as the right hash, or I don't know, really not sure why. Also, kickoffs, I think have been inconsistent. He had one that was out of bounds that was late, that shouldn't happen, that should have been a pin deep in that situation. The snapping, ASU replaced Cade Davis with Tyler Wigglesworth in the middle of the game after that first field goal was snapped too high. And they're punting with Canyon Floyd having a quad injury that has been pretty costly to his season. He missed several games, came back, probably not 100%. Did have some better punts. Punting wasn't really an issue in that game as much as it had been in some earlier games. But then the penalties, blocking the back, penalties, holding on special teams, their returns. They had 3 of them. One of them wiped away a pretty nice return by Zechariah Sample, 32-yard difference in field position. Then they had 2 other penalties. Dillingham said today that they can't put themselves in place where those are going to get called. And maybe that meant some of them seem borderline, and some of those penalties are not called at times. Special teams has a lot of these sorts of things that happen. But the bottom line is it's been enormously costly. They also had at the end of the game, they're running into the kicker on the missed field goal attempt. I think he was blocked into the kicker partly, but they still called that penalty. When you have these margins that are so close, as we've seen in the Big 12 last season, this season, and ASU's offense hasn't been able to put up huge production, you need your special teams to be reliable, and that hasn't happened, and it's been a significant contributor. Dillingham said earlier in the season it was going to cost them a game. I think it very easily could have cost them the Houston game. You don't know in and of itself if that was the difference, but certainly it was one of the major reasons why ASU lost to Houston.
Yeah, it definitely didn't help in any facets. I mean, when you're starting on your own 18-yard line compared to Houston, their average starting position was at their 36.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because they start on their own 10 and 15-yard line, and then they go 3 and out. Kane and Floyd's punts are only going to midfield or the opposite side of the 45, so you're already setting up Houston a very short field. And then if they end up going 3 and out, we saw them go back and forth a little bit in the third quarter, then you're once again pinned in your own area, and it just goes back and forth. So I think the operational part is very important. There's so many new faces. Kay Davis, the new long snapper. Wigglesworth was the starter last year, like you said. We saw him.
He replaced a starter who transferred for the Peach Bowl for the postseason.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've had a carousel of guys.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, Floyd with his quad issue, you wonder if that's still bothering him, and that may be bothering him when he's kneeling down in that position. It may stretch it out a certain way or something like that, where his holds aren't as consistent as they were last year. And it's kind of funny when you look at special teams, you don't realize how many moving parts there are until one of them goes wrong and the entire operation just falls apart.
Yeah.
So that just kind of shows how important every single player is in that facet. It's not just the kicker, it's the long snapper, the holder, whether Floyd can get the laces out in time or not. There's so many things that go into it. And then on the kickoffs, it's obviously a hard task when there's a 200-pound player sprinting 15, 20 miles an hour in your face to keep your hands exactly where they're supposed to be the entire time. But it's those little mistakes that add up over time, and that's what we saw against Houston. They started inside their own 15, 20-yard line, and that just was a snowball effect as a result of the whole game.
Yeah, they're going to have to get better. Kenny Dillingham said that he was confident that they're working as hard as they can, but that doesn't guarantee positive results. I'm sure that with Charlie Ragel's departure, that they're going to have a renewed energy and focus continuing on, and we'll see if they're able to have some progress there. But you make a good point about the field position battle. Super important when you're not putting a lot of offensive points on the board to be able to not be in a really bad starting position relative to your opponent throughout a game. And that's been a problem that ASU's had really throughout Kenny Dillingham's tenure with the punting and other issues that they've had.
And the injury bug has really hit ASU this year as well. That was the one thing that we said in all of our preseason coverage is if this team stays healthy, there'll be this, and this. And unfortunately for the Sun Devils and for ASU fans, that hasn't exactly been the case. That's really come to a head this past week. Sam Levitt went out at the end of the game. He came out twice in that Houston game, and then Jordan Tyson missed the entirety of the game. Kenny Dillingham was asked about it today, and he said, I'm going to wait till Wednesday to provide a further update. So, and those are just two of the injuries to the most important players, if not the two most important players on that team. So what's your guys' just kind of assessment of how this team has been forced to perform and still try to play through all of these injuries?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I think it needs to be said that Kenny Dillingham is going through things as a head coach that he's never experienced before. And so there's inevitably going to be a learning curve to some of these things. Okay, you have a mostly veteran starter core back. how hard do you push them in spring ball? How hard do you push them in camp? How do you manage that from a physicality tackling standpoint in your practices? You don't want guys to get hurt, but you also need to retain that edge that helped you be successful the prior year. Then he was unhappy with their preparation ahead of Utah, where they tried to allow guys to rest and recover and not go as hard in practice. They didn't have that physicality that he wanted. Then you come back and you beat Texas Tech with a different approach, but then when they're getting ready to play Houston Tuesday, Wednesday, there were 3 of their defensive starters that didn't even practice in Tuesday, Wednesday. Miles Rouser's not practicing. Boogie Wilson's not practicing. Remember, he replaced Xavier Alford, who hasn't played in the last month and a half. And then also Jordan Crook didn't practice. And Tate Romney, a backup linebacker, didn't practice. And Cyrus Fiaseu is already out for the season with a foot injury. So when you're saying, okay, we need to practice harder to be more ready for the physicality, but then also we don't have these starters that are capable of practicing, but we think that they're good enough to be able to play them in the games. These are situations that as a head coach that you're going through for the first time. And you're trying to navigate that, understand it, manage it as best as you can, put the best product that you can on the field. And ASU's played some really difficult, challenging opponents in terms of both the way that they execute, the results that they've been able to have. I think the schedule has been bad for ASU, with Utah and Houston being both quarterback design run heavy teams against the style of defense that's not the most conducive to playing that. And all of these things combined, along with penalties, tied for the most that they had in the Dillingham era, and the officiating, which there were some questionable calls in the game, and it's put them into this situation where they're 5-3 and very much going to need to win out even to have a remote chance to return to the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah, I think a big part of their Big 12 championship run last year was how healthy they were. They missed Levitt for 1 game, and then that was it. He was good to go after his rib injury that he suffered against Utah, but it seems that there's been a lot more injuries lingering for people like Levitt not playing against Utah, and then, like Gabby said, exiting the game twice, Jordan Tyson not playing. We haven't seen Xavier Alford in Big 12 play yet, but that's also allowed people like we probably wouldn't have seen Boogie Wilson play as much and step up like he has, and that's very promising for the future. And
Sure.
at the safety position, we've seen guys like Jaron Hamilton step up, and Malik McClain had a career game last week with Tyson out, so it's allowed these players to step up. But if you're Kenny Dillingham, you want your best players on the field at all times, and he really hasn't had that luxury. And then on the offensive line, it's just a carousel right now of him just trying to find the best 5 players, with Ben Coleman out for the year, Wade Helton missing some time earlier in the year. It's just been very difficult for them to get their best players out there healthy. And like you said, it's a balancing act where you want your best product on the field, but the best availability is availability.
Yeah.
So it kind of comes at a cost, and we've seen practice injuries happen, and they're such freak injuries that you can't really prepare for them. They just kind of happen. And Kenny Dillingham's done his best to roll with the punches and still having a chance to get to the Big 12 title game if a lot of things go right and they went out is in a way impressive with how much he's had to go through in just his 3rd year.
Yeah. With the special teams, the problems that they've had, and you mentioned the offensive line. I mean, Makua Pule is out there, former walk-on at center, next to a redshirt freshman who wasn't on the team last year, and Wade Helton, who wasn't even 100% last week. Totally agree. Houston won the line of scrimmage, had a very good defensive performance in that game, but they're going up against a team that's degraded on both sides of the ball. And Houston also had its injuries as well. One of its star receivers was out, and a couple other players, but not to the degree that ASU's had. And most of the opponents that ASU's faced actually this season haven't had as many injuries as ASU's had when we've looked at the injury reports that the Big 12's putting out on a week-to-week basis. And it's been a difficult schedule. It doesn't absolve. The expectations should have been really high. We all thought this was going to be a really good ASU football team. It hasn't lived up to that promise to this point. But you have to be able to critically evaluate all of the factors And certainly with no Jordan Tyson and Sam Levitt playing at less than 100% and in and out of a game and not out there for the last drive, that's a major thing.
Well, like you said, have to win out if they want. The
To
margin's
have
already
any chance.
the margin's already very slim after that loss to Houston, but now if they want any chance at all, they have to win out. They'll head up to Ames to play Iowa State this weekend. Iowa State and ASU, two teams talked about preseason as, repeating as title contenders for the Big 12. Hasn't really played out that way for either team. Iowa State last weekend against BYU, who had lost its starting running back and had a pretty substantial lead in that game at one point, still ended up losing. Iowa State lost to Colorado a couple weeks back as well. So just kind of a early first look. What do we make of this Iowa State offense, what ASU's defense will have to go up against this weekend?
Yeah, like you said, Gabby, they held a 24-10 lead in the second quarter against BYU. It seemed like everything was going right for them, and then BYU outscored them 31-3 from then on. Rocco Becht looked very shaken. Turnovers were huge. He threw 3 interceptions, 2 of which came in the fourth quarter. One was a pick six, 4 total turnovers, and one of them was something that was easily avoidable, where there's a very shallow punt. The punt returner is obviously pointing towards the ball, shouting poison, 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 like we've heard so many teams do, and it just clicks right off the Iowa State's player heel. BYU jumps on the ball, scores, and then that basically puts the game away. So definitely something that Iowa State wants to shake off. It's the first time since 2022 since they've lost 3 games in a row with BYU, Colorado, and Cincinnati. So and 2022 was the last time that they didn't make a bowl game under Matt Campbell, who's been a very storied head coach for Iowa State, the winningest in program history with 69 wins so far. In his 10 years, he's only missed bowl eligibility twice. A program record 11 wins last year, like you said, Gabby. A very high anticipated game heading into the year. Both of these teams now at 5-3, not exactly meeting the expectations that they thought they could get to. But in terms of the offense for Iowa State, it's much more comfortable for ASU's defense. I'd say it's a gunslinging offense, and we've seen against teams like that with Baylor and TCU with Sawyer Robinson and Josh Hoover sitting in the pocket making reads. ASU was able to contain them much better compared to the other 3 conference games, which much more mobile QBs like Devin Dampier and Will Hammond and Connor Wiegman last week. They gave ASU a lot more troubles with broken plays, triple options, all that type of stuff. So in terms of the offense that Iowa State runs, it's much more in the favor of ASU in terms of how their coverage is, especially because their run game isn't the strongest. They do have a running back by committee with Carson Hansen and Abu Sama, who ASU saw both of last year in the Big 12 championship, held them to pretty solid gains under 100 yards. But through the season, they've combined for over 1,000 yards. Carson Hansen is their base down back. That's their guy in the red zone, 6'2", 220. He'll barrel over defenders, and we saw that against BYU. But Rocco Becht only has 10 touchdowns on the season, which first glance you may think his numbers are down. It's because he is 7 on the ground. He leads the team with 7 rushing touchdowns. So when it gets down into the red zone, he's able to use his legs, which is
don't run him a lot by design until they're around the goal line.
Exactly. So that's the one thing that ASU has. It's been their Achilles heel so far is a mobile quarterback, and with so many talented quarterbacks in this conference, ASU is really going to have to step up in order to get to win that side of the ball.
So the thing I've noticed about Iowa State, they lost their 2 star wide receivers from last year's team, and they're playing as much 12 and 13 personnel as anybody in the country. And ASU, as you guys know and the audience knows, has been playing a lot of 2 tight end as well because of not having Jalen Moss and their receiver situation not being particularly impressive. And so this is a matchup of 2 teams that are playing about as much 2 tight end sets as any teams in the country. And so that breeds familiarity, especially when they already played last year. ASU's played a bunch of teams in the Big 12 that they didn't play last year, the Baylor, TCU, Houston, right? And so now you're going up against a team that you played, you understand the styles, but also there's some personnel changes because Iowa State is trying to generate mismatches with this offense. Like, are you going to go with a base nickel like ASU plays? Okay, cool. We're going to throw a big body tight end on you and see if you can cover that. right? If you go to a 3 linebackers, then it's like, okay, we're going to get that tight end athlete in space and see if you can cover that. And so ASU is going to have to do a good job of being prepared for the ability to bring those tight ends into the box and have a lot of blocking surfaces and be able to wear you out physically running the ball downhill, or the way that they're able to get a big body on a smaller player, either as a blocker on the perimeter in the slot or as a receiving option. You just saw Houston's tight end Cozio had a tremendous performance, the best of the season, over 100 yards. He's a team leader. And so now ASU is going to have to figure out a way with your Kendrick Breedloves and Montana Warrens and Miles Rousers to be able to cover the tight ends of Iowa State to be able to be successful in that game.
Yeah, looking up the seam was a big part for Houston last week. We saw how dangerous they were with that, and Rocco Beck also does a similar thing. His leading pass catcher is Benjamin Brahmer, leads the team with 29 catches, and is also tied for the team lead with 3 of the touchdowns that
Very
Beck has
dynamic
thrown.
tight end.
Very dynamic tight end, and that's going to be a big point of emphasis, I'm sure, especially after last week when Koziol just tore them up and down the field, especially when they got in the red zone where he was just able to hang out in the back of the end zone, allow Weigman to dance around the pocket and then find him in the end zone. So that's definitely going to be a big thing for the Nickels.
Yeah.
And definitely a lot of uncertainty surrounding ASU's offense this week. So, Jake, what is this offense going to be up against with this Iowa State team? And then, Chris, how does kind of not being super certain, as far as we know, there probably is a lot more certainty on the team, but with just so many question marks, how does that change the approach during the week and what preparation might look like for this Iowa State defense?
Yeah, what I've seen is that on a lot of base downs, they run a 3-4 defense with just 3 defensive linemen and then linebackers and defensive backs sprawled out all over the field. A lot of zone coverage. So Sam Levitt, if he's able to play, is going to have to be able to make a lot of reads in the pocket. And with the health of him and Tyson both up in the air, it's kind of hard to see what type of game plan depending on your personnel. If it's Jeff Sims throwing to Malik McClain or Sam Levitt throwing to Jordan Tyson, it's a pretty big difference.
We'll find out tomorrow.
We'll find out. We'll find out with the injury report and all that. But with the 3-4 defense, ASU has seen that once this year against Mississippi State, who only lined up 3 defensive linemen as well, and that's where they had their best rushing attack, which hasn't been as evident in the past few weeks. Raleek Brown has failed to reach 70 yards in 3 consecutive weeks after the 4 weeks prior, he had 100 yards in 3 of the 4 games. So I think getting the run game going early it would be very important against a defense like this who isn't lining up that many defensive linemen. And that's what Cam Scadaboo did in the Big 12 championship game. We saw him break off several 40, 50-yard runs in the first half alone.
That was a masterpiece performance.
Absolute masterpiece. And so that's going to be a big thing to get Raleek Brown going, possibly getting Kanye Udo in there. He played very well against Mississippi State with that odd front because they were just able to run it down their throat. We saw that in I think it was the first drive to open the fourth quarter where they scored that field goal. So I think the running game will be very important against a defense like this, especially when they have 6 interceptions on the year, which is right around the middle of the pack for the Big 12. So they're not big on forcing turnovers. So Sam Levitt being smart with the ball will also be very important.
Or Jeff Sims.
Yeah,
I totally agree. You got to capture the edges. And you have to get the run game established. The way that Houston went, it kind of got out of hand, but I do feel like ASU abandoned the run game a little bit prematurely with Raleek Brown. Whenever Raleek Brown's played well and they've been able to get him the ball a lot and try to possess the ball and do well in time of possession, those things have tended to translate to success for ASU's offense. When they ask too much of Sam Levitt in the passing game, that's when they've tended to have more problems. A game like this, going on the road, it's going to be a colder environment on the road. You don't want to have to rely on your quarterback, whoever that is, to make so many plays. It is a positive, though, that Malik McClain was able to kind of get going, and Jaron Hamilton, they've thrown the ball more to him. Jalen Moss was out there. Jalen Moss sighting, whoa. and so you got to be able to have balance. Tight end utilization finally is in the last 2 games has come quite a ways for ASU. That has to continue. We're going to know so much more once we are able to watch the team and see who's practicing in light of all these injuries that we've been talking about. And people are just going to have to keep tuned to what we're doing at Sun Devil Source, and check back with us in the Thursday podcast.
Oh yeah, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. All the podcasts get posted here, and then if you're not subscribed to Sun Devil Source yet, a lot of the times
Fix it.
Do something about
Somebody emailed me today with a question about what was said by Kenny Dillingham about his situation at ASU with his name being floated as whatever. And I gave an analysis on the message board on the Devil Sanctuary, and I sent this person who emailed me the analysis, and they were like, well, that actually makes a whole bunch of sense. And here's what I essentially said, okay? Because I post on there all day, right? It's a no-win situation if you're a head coach, because you're either going to say, I have no intentions of ever leaving. This is where I went to school, and this is my home, and this is where I want to be. And then if by chance you ever leave, people will say, you said you were never leaving, right? Well, so do you want to say that? That's what Jed Fish pretty much did at Arizona, and then he skated out the door to go to Washington. And especially when you don't know what jobs may or may not be offered to you, how much money may or may not be offered to you, what resources may or may not be offered to you, any other opportunity. And also, if you say that, how do you then take an opportunity and take that back to ASU to try to get more for resources, not for yourself necessarily, but for what you're trying to do with your program? There may become a time, I'm not saying that's the situation in this particular case, but when you publicly say these things, right, then you're going to be forced to hold on to that and adhere to that. And that is not something that savvy coaches are doing. So I think the right thing that coaches are always saying is, all of my energy and focus is on our team. It takes everything within me to help us get as better as we can every single day. And I'm not involved in any of that, not talking to anybody, not doing any of that stuff. Every coach should just say that up until the time at which you decide that you want to leave. And I'm not saying but remember, if you say like, oh yeah, I'm interested, or I'm entertaining, or you're focused on your own team, then everybody goes, wait a second, like, what about your team? What about your players? What about, and so it's just a bad situation no matter what. And what fans want to hear always is, they want to hear the thing that reassures them of what they want. Fans, they just want to hear Kenny Dillingham say, there's no other place I want to be ever. This is where I want to spend my whole coaching career, my life, and whatever. And Dillingham has said plenty of very positive things about what he hopes to be at ASU for his career. It's just that it doesn't really make a lot of sense in these situations to just be saying that all of the time. And because there's a lot of things behind the scenes that you're trying to accomplish in the dialogue that you have with the people you work for. And you also have no idea, what may or may not be offered to you or happen, or what you may or may not be able to get in terms of the resources that you think you need to be successful. So hope that people understand that is all part of the calculus of what goes into comments that head coaches make when they're savvy. Dillingham is a pretty savvy coach.
And that's just a taste of the analysis that you can get if you subscribe to Sun Devil Source, have access to the full message board. Like you said, you're posting on there all the time with updates on just about everything ASU athletics. So make sure to check that out if you haven't yet. And like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We post all of the press conferences, all of our podcasts on here. We'll be in Ames this weekend. We'll have you updated through all of the injury navigating that's going on, just as much as ever this week for ASU. So we will see you this weekend in Ames, and then back here at RAC Scottsdale for our Monday podcast a week from today. We want to thank RAC Scottsdale for their hospitality every week, and then, of course, our other sponsors, Jones Auto Centers, El Bandito Yankee Tequila, drinkonthesly.com, Devil's Liquor and Devil's Vodka. This wouldn't be possible without you. And like I said, we'll have you covered all week. So until next time, Gabby Chernoff, Jake Sloan, and Chris Cartman for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. We'll see you next week.